Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. We have 50 minutes today on stage. I'm looking forward to the conversation today. We have a bunch of fantastic folks who have spent a lot of time on ground deploying AI solutions, working with companies who are deploying AI solutions. When I saw who was going to be on the panel, I really wanted to focus in on how AI is being used on ground today to give you guys an insight into really what is happening in AI today in reality, separate the hype from reality and get deep into the details. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining us today. The way we're going to do the panel is I'll throw out a question. You have two mics in front of you, so whoever grabs first gets to answer. Um, and then we'll go from there. Looking forward to candid answers and really sharing the realities of what are happening. I think AI is a big word with a lot of different meanings. So let's drill down to understand and share with the rest of the crew. So, first question is, which is the first line of this session? Artificial intelligence stands at the cusp of revolutionizing financial inclusion in India. So my question to the four of you is, do you believe this statement?
Yeah, hi. Since I have the mic, I'll go first. I think I do believe in this statement. AI, especially generative AI, is definitely increasing the inclusion, umbrella, which currently is there. And I'll tell you why it's happening and how it's happening. So earlier, maybe formal credit was available to people who had tax returns, who had bank accounts, who were literate, who were educated, like people like you and me, who could understand the terms, who could click on check boxes which say I agree, which left a large part of the society which is not as fortunate as us, not as literate as us, which was not under the financial umbrella. But with generative AI, what is happening is that now you are able to converse with your loan provider in your dialect, in your vernacular language, in English, Hindi, Gujarati, Kannada, it does not matter. And you don't need to be literate, you don't need to be able to read and write. The generative AI can actually explain the terms of the loans, what you're signing up for, in your local language. You can say, हाँ मैं सहमत हूँ, right? And it gets recorded. So for example, there's a startup called Samati AI, right? And we are working with them. They're an account and aggregator platform where they're actually moving this entire application platform to voice and consent based using voice and video. The other part is also the data that is used to assess whether you can get a loan or not. Earlier it was, tax returns, bank accounts, but now if you're running a kirana store, you have a ledger, you have financial transactions, you can take a picture of it and upload, right? UPI transactions, your bill payments. There are multiple modality which comes into picture. And all of these data sources, which earlier were either very expensive to process or difficult to feed into a system and analyze, can now be done very seamlessly with GenAI. So the financial inclusion umbrella is expanding, not at the pace that we would love. India is a large country, but it's definitely expanding, leveraging GenAI.
You want to go? Yeah, I have a very different view here where I don't think the statement is true. I think when we think about financial inclusion, I mean, it's very easy, right? All of us know that India can be roughly divided into three parts. The top 100 million, the next 300 million, the last 1 billion. I don't think that, I think, first of all, the first fundamental problem in underwriting this customer, and I think one of the assumptions we are making is that financial inclusion fundamentally means credit financial inclusion, because bank account financial inclusion happened a while back. In credit financial inclusion, the first thing that you need is data. And Gen AI has very little role to play, in my opinion, with data. Data was sometimes not available because most transactions for this person happened in cash. So there was no digital record of that data. Now there are more digital record of the data as digital penetration has increased across many things. There's still different systems, but they can be put together. If you think about affordable housing loan, 5 lakh to 10 lakh rupee loan that gets given to a person to build a home that their person can repay over 20 years. There's a proper interview that happens. The informal income is estimated through that interview. All sources of income, all sources of data are looked at through a person. So in my view, the data has become more digital. Different data sources are now becoming step by step more accessible. And that has led to penetration of credit more, both secured and unsecured. But fundamentally, Gen AI, all that it has done is improved productivity. If I had a person doing that interview, collecting that data and spending few hours at it, Gen AI can do it in a few minutes. Or in my business, which is mostly credit cards, and I deal with the top 60, 70 million Indians, a sales call can happen by a Gen AI agent, or customer care can be done by Gen AI agent. All productivity solves. So I have a very counter view that Gen AI is only helping with productivity. It is yet to help with financial inclusion.
So it's helping on productivity for people who are already included.
Correct.
Got it.
So it reduces the cost of serving a bit, but it doesn't necessarily change the decision of whether to give that credit to that person or not. I mean, marginally it might, but not significantly needle moving.
Got it. Thank you.
So maybe I'll come in with a view that lies somewhere in the middle. I think AI is helping a lot, but very unevenly. And I think we have a long way to go in really leveraging it well in India in the true sense of financial inclusion, right? Not just do it for the top 100 million, but do it across the board. And at Kaleidofin, for example, I've been on this journey now for 7-8 years, and we've not used Gen AI, guys, as much, right? We are using Gen AI now, and we're using it for certain use cases, but AI is a lot broader than Gen AI, and there is a lot that folks have mentioned here in the usage of data, in the usage of strong machine learning models, in the usage of being able to retrain these models at a very good pace so that you can really bring access to customers. And I think where I feel there is a dent, right, is our journey has always been extremely focused on what we call the informal sector customer. So these are literally households that are making sometimes less than 3 lakhs as a household, max maybe 10 lakhs or so, right? So these are really sort of non-salaried, informal. It could be rural workers, smallholder farmers. It could be kirana store owners in urban areas. And what we have managed to do now is we have managed to enable credit for 13 million plus customers, of which I can assure you that 20 to 30% would not have got credit were it not for this score. And the reason the score works is it doesn't just go basis, because these people don't have tax returns. They don't even have, even though account aggregator is something we love the idea of as well and we are leveraging, sometimes half their world is in cash and half their world is in bank accounts. So we've had to bridge these things, right? How do you predict things when you know you're only getting a partial view? How do you leverage alternate data? But I think for me, there's still a dent, right? I think we're moving and we're getting more access, and these are real numbers, 20, 30%, while controlling risk at the same level, right? So I think we have a long way to go. I think we have to use Gen AI a lot more as well to improve the flows, but yeah.
Fantastic. So a couple of things. One, distinction between AI models and Gen AI models. So AI and machine learning models to help with credit is separate from what we're typically talking about as AI, which is Gen AI. We'll be going a bit deeper into that on our next question. But over to you, Aniket.
No, I think I kind of agree with Natasha there in terms of it's partially true. We at Haqdarshak serve what was called as India 2, India 3. Yeah. And we started using AI and ML initially in 2016. We were also part of one of the IMM, the incubators in 15 with Intel and TCS. So we started creating a database of schemes. So that's where we used it. And we created a 7,000 program database. To put in perspective, the amount of money that state and center combined spend on these programs is 9 lakh crores. 4.7 lakh by all states, 4.3 lakh by central government, which is going to increase with elections, as we have seen. Now, all of that targeting is not possible without AI. We are largely at that segment a consumption economy. We don't save. So to track that cash-based consumption, how are people saving, how are people spending, I think there is huge value that AI is adding. What is missing is that they cannot access some of these platforms directly. So we actually need to build tools for the agents network in the middle who need to be, where the solutions are built for them, because I think there is still a long way to go there, where I agree that I think most of the tech solutions are still built for the top 100 million in India, and I think they are the ones who will use credit in the financial inclusion space. But I think there is a lot of scope of doing simple programs on savings and other parts of financial inclusion using AI for the nudge and push that is required for the right kind of saving, or just explaining basic things as credit score, even though the India 3 is unlikely to ever have a regular credit score.
Yeah,
The
formal
traditional
one.
credit score is more or less unlikely that India 3 will ever have.
Awesome. So we've talked about inclusion at maybe a credit level or a, access to capital level. We've also talked about access at an accessibility level. So whether end users are actually able to access this thing through existing technology. I have a short example here from our end as well. We are also part of the Bharat Inclusion Initiative, the first cohort in 2017. Where we got the chance to work with Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, and were given the mandate of saying we have 5 million low literate MFI customers who currently take loan in person. Can you build a solution where they would be able to actually repay their loan on a mobile banking app because they don't use our current one? And we went on a 2-year journey building out a completely voice-based, AI-driven, not Gen AI, but voice AI-driven mobile app in 12 Indian languages, which now 2 million of those 5 million people use to do their group loan repayments. So this is where AI led to financial improvement or productivity improvement with existing folks who are already included, but also gave them a lot of agency and the ability to actually take one step deeper into using tech, which then leads to other advantages as well. So great, awesome. Thanks a lot, guys. Fantastic answers. Let me just get to our second question. So related to our answers so far, when we say AI in financial services today, we often mix different systems. From your experience, where has AI, so traditional ML, delivered proven value, and where is Gen AI genuinely additive versus overhyped? I think we already answered the first part of that question. So maybe let's take the second part of the question. Anyone want to pick that up?
I can take a shot at it. So generative AI is like few years old, right? But if you look at AI, and AI, how I like to put it is it's use cases which are built on machine learning. Now machines can think and make decisions for you, and machine learning is nothing but mathematics. For people who are techies in the room, I think a lot of you will agree, right? And machine learning models have existed for maybe 20 years, maybe even more. Right. So when you have to do decisioning, when you have to do whether I should give credit to a particular person or not, whether it's a fraud case, etc., machine learning works very well. So for example, if I give you a very rudimentary analogy, like for 2 plus, what does 2 plus 3 mean? You'll not go to a Gemini or any other model, right? You'll go to your calculator if you don't know that. So similarly, right, for credit decisioning, for fraud, for mathematical decisioning, you'll go to machine learning. So that's the decisioning part. Gen AI augments to it. Gen AI solves for access and interaction. So access, because a lot of people are not able to access the systems that have been built for the top of the cream in India. So it increases access and interaction because now you have multimodality. You have voice, you have video, you have photos, right? Which not many systems can consume without Gen AI. So decisioning is mathematical, leverage ML, and access and interaction is where Gen AI comes and increases your reach.
I think perfectly captured. What I can do is I can just double click on the first part of credit a bit more. You all have heard about CIBIL score, na? Credit score. What is it fundamentally doing? See, when you take any type of a credit product, your bureau gets the information of what amount you took, when you were supposed to repay, did you repay on that day, did you get delayed by few days or few months, and that happens on a monthly basis. That's mathematical data series, and that's replicated across every credit line. And all they do, when they prepare that score, is basically they're putting an ML algorithm, which is basically a mathematical equation on those set of variables to produce a score basis which they are saying we can give you, your credit score is good, or we can give you credit or not. So as he said, right, a mathematical decision becomes very easy when data sets are extremely well defined, are few, and their meaning is well understood. That happens in the world of credit. But in Gen AI, the data sets are wide, uneven, dispersed, multimodal, and very difficult to reduce to few sets of variables. And that's where Gen AI plays a significantly important role in interpreting things, in interfacing with things, and inferencing things. I will not go into the hype part. I will I will pass on the mic to my colleague.
Do you want to, I don't know if
No, no, go ahead.
us to answer all questions because you may be. No, I largely agree. I mean, I think it is true that Gen AI's best use cases, I think, are to expand access. And so, for example, I can tell you that, you know, even though we're a B2B company focusing on scoring, focusing on improving access, right, and convincing large institutions, large banks, large NBFCs to get more comfortable reaching an informal sector segment because it's got data backing it. We're also looking at Gen AI cases to further help those financial institutions, right? So I think on the customer side, we've already talked about it. You know, there's beautiful use cases in terms of language and voice and, you know, the ability of being able to interact with flows that you're not comfortable with. But I think even on the banking side, right, I think to be able to improve a credit analyst journey, to really be able to break down and help that analyst, because a lot of banks and NBFCs are not comfortable still to just flip, right? There may be a score, but the reality is they want some basis, they want some reviews, and there's a lot that Gen AI can do in that world as well to simplify that analysis that a credit analyst does. You know, parsing through documents. There's just so many applications that can be improved. We look, for example, quite closely at portfolio monitoring, right? How do you start using, again, this is probably not a Gen AI example as much, but just how do you start helping businesses decide where to shrink and where to grow? And I mean, I think I wouldn't call it hype, but we have to get there, right? And we have to get there in India's applications on it. So I hope we will get there soon. So.
I think I'll just add to it from our example. We have put a framework together at Haqdarshak where we feel every product or service can be put in it, which is DEAR, discoverability, eligibility, application, redressal. Right, so you can, let's say, take an example of PM Sonidhi, the government loan scheme for street vendors. So there is a discoverability part and eligibility application, and after you have delivered the service, which is the customer engagement. On the DNR part, I think AI play a big role. How do you do discoverability better? How do you refine that? Once you have got a customer onboarded, how do you support them even more? Right, because that again, PM Sonidhi is a program which is a layered graduation program. Starts with a 15,000 rupee government backed loan and goes up to 50,000. And then you are eligible for a mudra loan. I'm giving just an example of services. Eligibility and application is something that where I think AI has very little role to play because that is already set, like it was earlier mentioned, by predefined rules, eligibility criteria, application support. So I think from our perspective, we feel, I mean, agreed largely that I think how do you get more inclusion done at the first phase, because discoverability is the most underrated part. We assume in this room we know things. There are millions out there who do not know a product exists. Right. Everything else will happen later, but they do not know how to discover a product or service.
Can you give a on-ground example on the R part?
So I think the work kind of that you mentioned, right? How do you get group loan members, SAG members, for example? Let's say in Madhya Pradesh, we worked with similar self-help groups to get them group loans through PSUs. But government also came up with a program called Lakpati Didi, where there were other initiatives tied to the same program where they could get access to health insurance, group cover. Some of them were also made eligible, directly eligible for rooftop solar, water pump subsidies. So I think they're getting on getting connected with the customer and then ensuring that using their existing eligibility or application can we push other products. And there again, voice-based solutions, group solutions in terms of how can we reach them better can play a big role. Again, huge gap still. I think when we design it in our offices and how it goes on the ground, 2 hours out of here, the internet stops working. So, I mean, there are practically a lot of challenges, but it is theoretically possible and technically in pilots, it has shown results.
Has it seen results in production for you yet anywhere? Let's say on the R side of things, maybe a voice-based thing or...
I mean, again, at a very small volume, it has, where I think, for example, our work with gig workers, it has started showing some results, where we are directly integrating with Zomato for their delivery partners to get them access. In existing, they have integrated with NPS. Now we are trying to say anybody who is on NPS, can they get APY, which is Adult Pension Yojana, which is actually a great product as well. So it requires a little bit of nudge and push, the kind of effort on chatbot that Zomato has to make. It would not happen unless Zomato makes that investment. For example, it is not possible otherwise to go. So in certain geographies and customer bases, it is working. But if I were to say for farm workers in Bihar, not. I mean, that's not working yet.
And that's because of the limitation of the tech.
Limitation of the tech, limitation of basic access.
Okay.
I mean, there are 700 million people in this country who are on feature phones or no phones.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, for them, I mean, technology is smartphone.
Right.
Right. I mean, we are talking about AI, they are talking about SMS is technology.
Yeah.
WhatsApp is technology. It's subjective.
Yeah.
So I think it is. But there is, I mean, just pure volumes. There is still a huge, I mean, population to which is ready to get access, which is keen on understanding more, which is keen on these technologies. We just need to make sure it reaches
there
them.
for them. Fantastic. Just to clarify for the panel, you don't have to answer every question. You can pass it along and we can move on. So coming to that, let's touch on algorithmic exclusion. So, and maybe data gaps. So I'll read out this question. As AI systems increasingly influence eligibility, targeting, and access, how do we prevent algorithmic exclusion of people who are already sitting outside of formal data systems? Any thoughts here? I'm looking straight at you.
Yeah, no, I think, so we live and breathe this, right, day in and day out. And I think very often the issue is not bad intent. The issue is just missing context, missing data, right? How do you, there are so many problems. There are, I just mentioned one, right? The bank account doesn't give you a full view on the customer. Half their world is in cash. Sometimes the whole world is in cash. There are agent-led flows where the customer, you're never actually getting to interact with the customer, right? They are not on their phone. There's an agent assisting them precisely for the reason Aniket mentioned, which is that they are on feature phones still, or they are not comfortable using this. There are just real seasonal cash flow mismatches, right? Farmers don't make the same amount every month like we do. They don't get a deposit into their bank account. So in that world, right, how do you manage those data gaps? How do you make your algorithms work to avoid excluding the same set of people every time? What do you do to now start supplementing for that is a problem we try to look at constantly. And I think what we have at least been pushing a lot towards is to combine as much of the traditional data that's available, even if it's partial, with as much alternate data as we can get our hands on and that we can prove has value, right? So there's a lot of alternate data sets we've done research on that go nowhere. They're too aggregated, right? If you can't get close enough to the customer, you're almost creating exclusion. So even at a pin code level, right, if you have data, it's tricky sometimes, right? Because are you okay to have your algorithm be influenced by pin code level data? But we do use it, and we try to get to a lat long level. We try to get to a village level wherever possible. So I think the what we try to do to avoid algorithmic exclusion is manifold, right? One is to bring in more data sources to avoid the issue of algorithms doing a bad job. Also, just to monitor the algorithms like crazy, right? Like constant work on false negative detection, false positive detection, understanding where, what types of segments are we excluding, right? Is there a bias to certain villages? Is there a bias to certain religion, caste? I mean, the obvious things, obviously, everybody does, right? You remove things like religion, caste from any algorithms. But there's a lot that needs to be done beyond that, so, yeah.
Fantastic. I'll add something here on the accessibility side, so the interaction side. When we started in 2017, all of India was algorithmically excluded from speech recognition and voice AI, right? Because of, we have 19,000 dialects, users who have not been on the internet generating, data online that could be scraped and used to create models. We were totally excluded. And so I think we saw over the last 5 years, us included, AI for Bharat, IIT Madras, IIM Ahmedabad, IIC Bangalore, everyone trying to solve for this exclusion. And how do you solve for that is actually generating that data, creating the data on ground. So we spent 3 years working with ISC Bangalore, collecting over 15,000 hours of data across 45 dialects to represent, our folks in algorithms for voice AI in India. And now we're seeing the benefits of that. It's starting to be used by Aniket on ground. We're seeing other folks using it and being able to deploy voice systems all across the country. So I think thinking about the data, where it's coming from, what sources, and not depending only on existing data sets, but being open enough to creating data sets from scratch for very India-specific problems is something that we should definitely all think about as we move forward. Anyone else from the panel for this question?
I think my 2 cents is that, see, I'm a lender. I've been a lender for a long time. If I'm excluding a data set, I'll not try, or excluding, or have a bias in my models, I'll not try to remove that bias from my models. My models work. And removing that bias may disrupt the entire model that is working, the credit score that is working. So I'll not try to remove that bias. I'll just, for whatever bias that exists, for whatever data set that exists, I'll just create a separate model and scoring for that, and then combine the 2 scores. That's what we have always done, and it works extremely well. So removing bias, at least as a credit, as a lender, right? I know something is working. Removing something is adding too much to something which is working, adding too much disruption to something which is working. Whereas just solving for that bias, that problem statement explicitly, and then bringing it to the main fold through some addition, two-way model, whatever. There are multiple techniques to do that. Is preferable. That's the only technical flavor I like to give to this question.
And considering we're in India, do you think that you've done a lot more of this slicing basis the diversity we have, or do you think it's comparable to the rest of the world?
See, I'll tell you what, as a lender, right, and once you have been lending for some time, demand is not a problem.
Right.
so there are enough and more takers. Right. You can be selective. Now, which means that there needs to be more competition in formal space in where financial inclusion goals need to be met for India 2 and India 3. There isn't enough competition, by the way.
Right.
There is enough competition for India 1. Yeah. There is barely any competition for India 2 and India 3. So when there is barely any competition for India 2 and India 3, lenders choose. They don't go out of their way. She's an outlier.
Yeah, makes sense. Awesome. I'll take a quick temperature check from the audience. We have 20 minutes left in the panel. Can I get a show of hands of how many people may want to ask questions? Then I'll take time accordingly. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, great. So we can. I want to touch one last question. This is the one thing I really wanted to get a view from everyone. Then we'll just jump straight to questions. It's a fantastic panel, so I'm sure everyone really wants to get your views. Last question then. This is mostly on the question of how AI is going to either augment human beings or replace human beings. What is the pace at which AI automation is happening? Aniket, you're saying maybe it's not as fast as we think. Others I speak to think it's way faster. I personally think it's extremely fast. What do you think the pace of automation is going to do in terms of job replacement or job loss? It's a very uncomfortable question that no one really wants to answer, but I cornered you guys yesterday into actually answering this.
No, I think I agree it is fast, but I think I was sharing the example in a call as well that we were about 850 people in Jan 25. We are 450 people. This includes our field teams, and our work has not got impacted.
In fact, it's increased.
It's increased. The problem that I see is those 400 people who are in tier 4, tier 5 villages will not get any other job. So the problem is that the productivity and incomes of people who can quickly get trained and already at our level are actually its great potential. We are going to see much more productivity, potentially them getting more time, not working 6 days a week or long hours. That productivity will increase, hopefully incomes will increase. But the problem is the volume in our country, at least what we are seeing in our work. There is a large population which either needs huge investment in training, right? Our technology and our skilling vertical just doesn't correlate. We are still skilling very different kind of things.
Yeah.
Right? We are not getting into skilling like you're saying that AI technology is progressing at such a fast rate. But our youth in skilling centers is probably not getting trained on those things yet. And that is, I think, making a big difference. And large changes are happening in things like voice and support and backend support.
Yeah.
So I think, and even in research, for example, right? Like how we, 10 years back when we started Haqdarshak, the number of researchers required, if someone were to do this today, would require 1/10 the number of human resources to do because there is so much technology available. So I think it is definitely moving at a big pace, and it is a concern because I think I mean, and that's also the population which is already slightly excluded
Yes.
and is highly aspirational. And then probably I think it may not happen in India immediately, but then I mean, what we were thinking will happen 10 years ahead might happen in 4 to 5 years.
Much sooner.
So much
Yes.
sooner.
Yeah. On the training point, Aniket, even as I think about this problem, like what would we even, I'm worried about my job. What would we even define as training, for this next set? I know it's a very tough question I've just thrown at you, but do you have any thoughts there? Like what would be useful?
I think, I mean, I also don't know the answer because it is so contextual, but maybe all of different like domain experts and organizations coming together and creating platforms where such folks can be trained on whether it is customer acquisition techniques or whether it is customer service techniques. I mean, to give you an example, India has the largest banking correspondent channel. And considering there are so many banks and other lenders, I don't think the typical banking correspondent model will sustain
I agree.
for a long time. MFIs are already feeling the pain, and that kind of collection, acquisition strategies are not going to happen.
Yeah.
But while MFIs, I'm sure, will innovate, NBFCs will innovate, what about those 10 million agents? And a million of them will do fantastically well, I'm sure, like 10%, top 10 percentile rule. There is this huge population who's been doing this for the last 20 years. When our SAGs came up and everything, and they have not got trained. The young people coming in today in rural villages are not getting trained on these technologies. So I think maybe that's where we could potentially start from a financial services standpoint.
Right, makes sense.
There are two patterns that I want to talk about. The first is that what is happening with any repetitive job in India, voice getting automated or Gen AI is basically automating any repetitive job. That's just not happening in India, that's happening across the world. So people in the West are even more worried that the jobs, whatever, that 10-20% will not stay with them. It will just come to India. So A, there is an opportunity coming to India in drives as well because of this. B, 50 years ago, this was the same argument that, my dad was a farmer, my grandfather was a farmer, I know farming. What do I do if farmland, if there are not enough rains or the farmland is not big enough? I need to go to the city to figure out a way to earn money. All our ancestors have migrated, were farmers at some point. It boils down to that enterprising individual. Will there be opportunities? For sure. Will there be enough in the short run? I don't know. But for an enterprising individual, the top 10% that you refer to is an enterprising individual. It's not that they're doing the same job. It's that they're doing different job, but they are more enterprising at it. At the end of the day, it will boil down to an enterprising individual. Enough and more opportunities will always exist. Today, if somebody decides to leave their farmland, come to a city, take up a bike from Yulu and start doing gig work for Zomato or Swiggy is enterprising. People will need to be enterprising. That person will need to be enterprising. We can change our training programs, but that doesn't mean that person will become enterprising. What we need to fundamentally solve for is how do we get that thing going where people are more enterprising. So these are two small things.
Yeah, I just completely agree. If I don't upskill myself, I won't have a job in a few years. So if we talk about rest of the India, yes, this is my personal view, not coming from Google Cloud. I think the formal job economy is going to change a lot. We are going to move a lot towards the gig economy, right? Just because a lot of things can be automated and will be automated. Not only does it make it efficient, but extremely reduces the cost also. So it's going to happen, right? So what we are seeing is in the gig economy, people are still working with Zomato, Swiggy, and places like this. But I think that sector needs to change. So a little bit more technical savviness, right? So for example, we talked about data, and the pace at which new data is being created is unimaginable, right? The kind of requirement that we see for memory storage, etc., because of new data being created is unimaginable, but that data cannot be used, right? So annotating that data, cleaning that data, just helping ensure that that data can be consumed by systems is like a massive opportunity, right? If I give you another example, content creators, this category of gig workers didn't exist few years back, right? Today, content creators are making more money than probably everybody in this room. Sorry for that. And you have content creators from Bihar, from Karnataka, from rural places, and you have followers for them also. So new categories emerge. People have to be mindful, watchful. As he said, the farming example, we had the industrial revolution, we had the IT revolution, and probably now we are in the AI revolution. So everybody, including us, have to upskill, and gig workers, I think government needs to do something about it to ensure that gig workers are directed in the right direction, because they may not be as aware, but that upskilling needs to happen.
Yeah, taking that point, I think the pace at which this is happening, for me in the short term, I think it requires an off-ramp. It requires, either the government or funding organizations, someone to step in to provide that off-ramp and, cushion the pace at which the automation is taking place. Again, my personal point of view. On that very happy note, let's take a pause on the panel and us pontificating, and let's start taking some questions. You had your hand up first, so I have to come to you.
May I request the audience members to use the mics? Since we are live streaming this event, this will allow the other people in the room to hear you as well. Thank you.
Just a quick reminder, let's keep it short and towards a question.
Sir, I will try. Okay.
Thank you.
Sir, actually, I just wanted to say that I completely disagree with the point of Deependra, sir, that one. Cause if I ask what is the AI, so you might say that is artificial intelligence. But if I ask you what is artificial intelligence, you may say anything. Like there are several meanings. But the thing is, AI, this word was first tossed in 1950 when Alan Turing created an invention. Okay. And at that time, we used to call calculator as AI. Why? That can solve complex problems, calculations. But as per the today's definition, we don't call calculator as AI. The reason behind this is American Psychological Association defined the meaning of intelligence. Intelligence is something जो कि मतलब complex ideas को समझे, उसके बाद में जो environment है उससे मतलब उसको वो मतलब समझे, उसके साथ साथ वो जो experience है उससे सीखे, और जो मतलब कुछ reasoning है तो वो properly कर सके, ठीक है. और दूसरा
I'll have to interrupt. Like, can you get to the question, please?
Sir,
we have only
yes,
10 minutes. There are many people who want to ask questions. Thank you.
Sir, try to understand this thing. Please,
I'm trying.
Please, sir. Okay. So the thing is that, तो ये इसका meaning है. तो जो सर ने बोला कि कैलकुलेशन जो कर सकते थे कॉम्प्लेक्स, तो वो उसे आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस बोलते, तो वो कम्प्लीटली गलत है. ठीक है. आज हम कैलकुलेटर को जैसे एआई नहीं बोलते, वैसे हम फ्यूचर में जो आज का एआई है उसको हम AI नहीं बोल सकेंगे, क्योंकि तब artificial general intelligence होगा.
So your concern is about the definition of AI.
Yes.
So you'd like
but
to clear
the thing
that
is
up.
that machine can't think anything. It just follows the pattern. And the sir which mentioned about the productivity, I have 5 definition of AI. You all will agree with that. Okay. So just let me tell about that full form.
Can we come back to you for your 5
Yes.
definitions, please?
AI is automation improver. AI is approachable interface. AI is amplified imagination. AI is advice integrator. AI is augmented individual.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I love differing views, and thank you for sharing it with us, right? I think the future, as you rightly said, is AGI. When we are going to reach there, nobody knows. But when we reach there, the world is going to look very, very different, right? And yes, AI started in 1950s or 60s with Eliza. And today we are at Gemini, and next is AGI. Definitions will keep on changing every few years. In today's world, maybe every few weeks. But thank you for that.
Thanks, Deependra.
So the question here is about data. You started with data.
Sure. So could you introduce yourself first?
My name is Sunil Parekh. The question is that all of you are gathering a lot of data. There may come a time when you would like to pivot your business to some other business, and you will still continue to have that access to the data that you have painfully collected over the years. How ethical is it? Number one. Number two is, when you sell your company, the entire data gets transferred to the company that is acquiring you. What happens to the privacy of the original fellow who has given you the data, especially in the context of the data protection law that has just come?
Anyone want to take that?
So as a corporate, when I get that data, I build a lot of value on top of the data. So the data is valuable as a company. So if I sell my company, whoever acquires it partially is also acquiring for the data. So data is valuable. Now to protect a individual rights, that's why DPDP has come into place. Right? As an individual can come and say, delete my data. As a company, I will delete all traces of the data, everything. And that's my job. And if I don't do that, then the penalty of DPDP is extremely high, not even worth going there. So I think the first thing is that everybody understands that data is extremely valuable. Corporates understand that, they use it. And because the government wants to make sure that it is not misused and the right of the data stays with the customer, that's why the DPDP Act has been enacted. And it gives the right and the power to an individual or whoever is given that data to get it deleted, to get it removed from a corporate. So I think that issue in my so the same thing.
I think we work with that billion, and we have data of about 10, 11 million families, right to the extent of socioeconomic. So we take consent. If there is a consent framework, we also work on digital financial literacy. And I think we like I think it is mentioned that we try and do whatever it takes to ensure that there, for example, if you are running a company and come to Haqdarshak and say, I want to sell this, we can't. We'll have to take the consent of the citizen that do you want, for example, a company to come and promote their product to you. We can't today just do a push notification to them because they didn't give us data to sell, say, an XYZ product. They gave us data to get access to government schemes. So the use-based data consent is very important. And I think that's, I mean, we all get bombarded by SMSs and calls of all kinds. So I think the top 100 million are less protected than the bottom 1 billion.
Yeah, absolutely. Another point there is that most entrepreneurs who are addressing this not top 100 million are not just doing it for the business outcome. And you often see that in the practices that they do. So like, for example, Aniket would ensure that the customer is not just ticking a consent box, but they're actually understanding. So when he mentioned digital financial literacy, I'm sure that's part of his program. Similarly, when we collected data all across the country, we had a consent form as well. It was a text-based one in their language, but these were a lot of users who may have been completely illiterate as well. So there was a voice summary of what that consent was as well. So you'll see those types of artifacts with entrepreneurs who are focused on that non-100 million user base. And I think it is the responsibility of most who are serving them.
And just 2 pence more, right? If you are a regulated entity, and since we are dealing with financial inclusion as lenders, anybody, right? We are regulated entities. If I am a regulated entity, RBI will come and do my audit. When they come and do my audit, they go through each of my consent, my TNC, my legal agreements with the customer, everything in detail. So there is a government authority, RBI checking, double checking everything. And then they check whether the data which was supposed to be there for that time frame, was it held longer than that? Was it used for any other purpose? So RBI is a very strict regulator that, you know, both Natasha and I can strongly agree with. And they go to lengths to ensure that data protection is there to the standards there are very, very high. Oh yes, I mean, if I'm a regulated entity, it does not matter who is purchasing, who is a shareholder. RBI will come and do their audit once a year at least. Maybe more. And then and this is on-site audits. They check everything.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, my name is Shyam and I want to know, in the fintech space where I believe 3 out of 5 panelists are fintech founders. So do you see any existential threat, from the AGI or AI or agentic AI, which have been doing the rounds for last couple of years? In the terms of that Indian ecosystem, not doing enough in terms of capex or new projects or some radical changes, that can change or transform the whole industry, right? Just like we are seeing in the US every day, someone is saying that, in every sector it will have a deep implication, and it will change the whole business model itself. Like maybe we have an AI model which can underwrite credit in a very different way than we are doing right now.
So I think I'll take this one and do it quickly. I think I'll take his point first, right? That he mentioned you'll see a huge amount of productivity gains. I don't think we're headed towards an existential threat for the entire industry. You'll see incredible gains on productivity, speed, and quality of delivery of service. Better ways to calculate credit. You'll see all of these things really improve at a pace that you would not have expected. But I don't think we're headed towards any major existential threat for the entire industry.
Just one call out, right? Have you all heard of Blockbuster? It was right. They used to make money from late fees. There are enough and more financial services companies that make money on the forgetfulness of the customer. Like minimum balance नहीं रखा penalty लगा दी, check bounce हुआ penalty लगा दी, EMI bounce हुआ penalty लगा दी, late हुए late fee लगा दी. I think it's just a matter of time, and very, very soon, matter of few quarters or at most few years, when there will be a personal financial assistant that all of us will have. It will keep a track of all these rules and regulations that a financial product carries given by these financial institutions, and will ping you at the right time so that you don't make a mistake. So anybody who's relying on a business model which relies on the forgetfulness of a customer, that business model may disappear.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Jatin Gupta. We have heard about credit for informal segment. My question is regarding formal segment, means the person, you and me, who are part of the formal segment. So what is the role of AI for the formal sector as on date, and future and opportunities for the formal segment? Means how AI can leverage the formal segment apart from informal segment that we have just talked about.
I think a lot is already happening, right? It's about, for the formal segment, the good thing is that you have structured data, you have decisioning models, and you have a pretty good distribution network, right? What he was saying is that, it will get smarter. Your loan application system, origination system, assessment system will get smarter. So we are looking more at efficiency gains, productivity gains. If you had to have 500 employees earlier, that work can be done at half the cost or maybe quarter of a cost. But things like late fee, etc., reminders, etc., are going to become very common. So, I do this at times. When I need some money, I break my FD. So we are working on a use case where there will be a pop-up, hey, if you wait for 10 more days, you get, let's say, 500 rupees more, right? Because FDs have those penal clauses. Nobody has that kind of cognitive bandwidth to keep a track of everything, right? So I think for the formal segment, what AI is going to do is new use cases which reduce the cognitive load from the user. So the mistakes that you're making while breaking an FD or missing your deadline will be done by AI, and they will come to you as prompts, right? Even collections is becoming very efficient, right? If you miss your deadline, most companies provide some grace period, right? At least the big ones, the good ones who cover the formal segment. And a call goes, hey, your due date is coming. But now we are working on a use case where you can actually say, hey, this month I'm traveling, or my salary came late, so can I make it by next week? And that date is updated in the system. So without any interaction, 5 calls to the customer service, low cost, very efficient. Bank knows you're going to pay. You're going to pay eventually anyways. And any penalties, etc., which are then applied, then removed, huge cost, huge burden, all go away. So I think productivity, efficiency, cognitive load, all of those things are, there are huge, opportunities. Who builds that, who solves that, is for all the startups to decide.
And I think also things like fraud detection, right? Ability to use extremely large data sets that are very, very disparate, right? I think there's a lot going on fraud, right? We're a massive economy. And I think there are fantastic ways that is being leveraged today. And I think that needs to go way further. And as much as I hate to say it, I think that will benefit the formal economy a lot more than the informal initially. I think it should benefit both. But I think that's another whole area where I think the faster, I hope Indian companies get there, right? To really start detecting mules, there's so much to be done there. And I also think for me, I think one very interesting area I think hopefully will go for the formal segment is just to enable businesses get more efficient also. So how do you use AI to detect where I should grow, right? Like what's doing well, what's doing badly? How do I predict, okay, climate's these are my climate predictors, these are my crop predictors, right? 3 months from now, 6 months from now, how do I really use that smartly to start planning my business differently and really take portfolio monitoring to an entirely different level? So I think those are some more. I think there are immense use cases, but I think those are some. I mean, I think they've already covered that. I mean, I think, see, data is quite effective in the formal segment already, right? Maybe just, I think processing of, say, GST or your, many different company statements, I think automating that is just going to be massive, right? It's already happening, but I don't think it'll take as long. The development cycles will shrink massively. I think those will be built by AI largely rather than by developers training stuff. So.
Yeah. Last use case here on voice AI, what we're seeing on ground, phenomenal efficiencies, 25% of the cost of what it would take to run a human call center, you're able to do with AI today. You're able to do it across all languages, so you can deliver the same level of quality to all parts of the country at the push of a button. It enables new use cases where you could do immediate calling, where it's useful to increase pickups. But even if you were to just do what you're doing today with voice AI, you're seeing a 25% drop. You're seeing increases in the amount of throughput as well. So your top line increases. The advantages of voice AI is already being seen across the market.